Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to peel back that digital curtain and figure out how modern websites seem to magically read your mind and your screen to look perfect no matter where you view them.
You know that feeling, right? You tap a link on your phone and suddenly you're doing that awkward two-finger dance, pinching, zooming, sliding side to side, just to read a single line of text. It is so frustrating. That whole experience, it's a ghost from an older web. A web that just wasn't ready for the world we carry around in our pockets.
So how did we get from that hot mess to the smooth experience we expect today? Well, here's our roadmap. We'll start with why the old way was so broken. Then we'll look at the magic building solution that changed everything. We'll cover the big shift to designing mobile first, the absolute obsession with speed, the modern tools that make it all happen, and finally, the crucial last step, the final inspection.
All right, so first things first. To really appreciate the solution, you've got to understand just how bad the problem was. See, the web, it didn't start out this flexible, not even close. Back in the day, websites were designed like fixed-sized posters. They were built for one thing and one thing only, a desktop monitor of a specific size. If you tried to look at that poster on anything else, like an early smartphone, forget it. It was a disaster. That whole one-size-fits-all approach, it very quickly became a one-size-fits-none reality. So clearly, that couldn't last. Developers needed a completely new blueprint, something smarter, something that could bend and flex and adapt all on its own.
And that new blueprint is called Responsive Web Design, or RWD. The core idea is actually kind of beautiful. Instead of that rigid poster, a responsive site is more like a magic building. It can literally sense the size of the land it's on, your screen, and then it just rearranges its rooms and its layout automatically to give you the perfect view. No more pinching and zooming.
Now, this isn't actually magic. It's really just four clever ingredients working together. You've got fluid grids, which use percentages instead of fixed pixels, so layouts can stretch and shrink. You have flexible images that do the same thing. You've got this tiny but critical instruction called the viewport meta tag, which basically tells your phone, hey, display this page properly. But the real secret sauce, the magic spell, is something called CSS media queries. These are rules that say, if the screen is this wide, use these styles. But if it's that wide, use these other styles instead. That's what does all the heavy lifting. So responsive design was this huge leap forward. But it also sparked an even bigger, more profound shift in how we think about building things for the web.
And this is where the mobile-first approach comes in. For years, the standard was to design a huge, complex desktop website and then try to chop it up and shrink it down to fit on a phone. Mobile First flips that completely on its head. It says, nope, we're going to start with the hardest part. We're going to design the core experience for the phone first, and then we'll scale it up.
This was a huge philosophical change. The old way, graceful degradation was subtractive. You started with the big, feature-packed desktop site, and then you degraded it. You removed stuff until it kind of worked on mobile. The new way, progressive enhancement, is additive. You start with a clean, fast, essential experience on the phone, and as the screen gets bigger, you progressively enhance it by adding more features. It just leads to a cleaner, better product.
This whole idea was really championed by Luke Wroblewski over at Google. His point was simple but powerful. Starting with mobile's constraints forces you to focus on what's truly essential. And that discipline often sparks innovation and just creates a better product for everyone, on every device.
Okay, so our website looks great on any device. We're done. Problem solved, right? Well, not so fast, because another equally important challenge came roaring into view.
I mean, really, what good is a beautiful layout if your users get bored and leave before it even finishes loading? A responsive site absolutely has to be a fast site.
And this brings us to that second huge pillar of modern web development, Web Performance Optimization, or WPO. You can think of this as the science of making websites feel lightning fast, because in the digital world, every single second, heck, every millisecond counts.
And the data on this is just crystal clear. As the time it takes for a page to load goes up, so does the bounce rate. That's the percentage of people who just give up and leave. A slow website isn't just an annoyance for the user, it's genuinely bad for business.
So how do developers actually make sites faster?
Well, they have a whole toolkit of strategies. They optimize images to shrink their file size, they use caching to help your browser remember parts of the site for faster repeat visits, and they even minify code, which literally removes every unnecessary character. It's all about trimming the digital fat to make the whole thing leaner and faster.
So these principles are great, but, putting them into practice day in and day out, that required a full-on revolution in the tools that developers actually use to build layouts. For years, and I mean years, developers were building page layouts with what were basically hacks. They were using tools like tables and floats that were never intended for that job. It was like building a house with a screwdriver and a wrench. But then, in 2017, everything changed. A new tool arrived called CSS Grid. What made it so amazing is that it's a two-dimensional layout system. It understands both rows and columns natively. For the very first time, the core language of the web had a tool that was specifically designed to solve the complex layout problems developers had been wrestling with for decades.
And you really can't overstate the impact. As the team at CSS Tricks said, Grid is one of the most powerful CSS modules ever introduced. It makes it incredibly simple to define an entire page layout and then completely rearrange it for different screens with just a tiny bit of extra code. It was a true game changer.
Okay, so we have a great design philosophy. We have our need for speed. We have powerful tools. There's just one last, absolutely critical step in the process. You have to make sure it actually works. A fantastic design is completely useless if it's broken on your user's device. And with a massive landscape of different phones, browsers, and screen sizes, a single bug on a popular device can ruin the experience for millions. Testing isn't a final step, it's a constant, essential part of the whole process.
And developers have two main ways to do this. For a quick look, they can use the emulation tools that are built right into web browsers. They're good for a preview. But for authentic, bulletproof results, nothing beats the gold standard, testing on a real device cloud. These services let you see how your site performs on thousands of actual physical phones and tablets, which is how you catch those weird device-specific bugs that an emulator would miss. So, when you boil it all down, responsive design, performance, mobile-first, testing, it's all built on a foundation of empathy. It's about caring for the user. All of it works toward one single goal, creating an experience that feels effortless and welcoming, no matter who you are or what device you're on. It's the difference between a website being an open door or a frustrating maze. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.